Nesting components. It sounds weird, right? But when used properly, it can be very useful. In this video, I'll show you how to use this feature on Divhunt, and I'll give you some use cases so you can get a better idea when and where to use this feature. Okay, before we begin, let me show you the final product of this video. As you can see here, I have created a completely new page. Let's switch to the layers. And I here only inputted a navbar, so let's add three components. And here we can immediately call our section flex component, and we can call it 3 times. And as you can see, the structure is everywhere the same, but let's make it different. Now I need to select this component, hit the edit content, and as you can see, I have two variables, content left and right. For the content left, let's set something like content with CTA, and for the content right, let's set a simple form. Hit save button, and you will see that I have changed the structure of my component. That's because inside this big component I have two component slots which can pull the structure of other components and showcase it inside this big component. Now let's select this second component, and inside content left let's set a background with image, and we can as well input some different data. We don't need to stick with the defaults. And into the content right, let's select a grid cards, and let's change the content here. For example, my test card. Hit save, save again, and save again. And you will see that I have changed the content of my big component and as well the content of my small component, which is nested inside the big component. Now to select the third component as well and edit content again, we can choose a component with CTA this time. Let's configure some data, my new section, hit save button. And for the right side, we can choose a background with image, and we can switch the image to be this here. Hit a save button, save again, and you will see that we have used same component 3 times, but since we have component slots inside of this component, we can make the structure completely different. Now this method is very useful when you want to give access, for example, to your marketing team, and they can build different sections, even complete pages without the help of the actual developers. You can as well give the access to your client, for example, and he can on his own build the structures which you can predefine, and he can have the power to create full pages which can be fully versatile. Enough talking, let's see how can you create this. Okay, so this is the template that we are going to use for this video, and if we scroll down a little bit, you can see that everything here is a static layout. We don't have components here, and as you can see, this layout on the right side looks pretty much reusable to me. We can use it inside different section. We can just exchange the background color and the image inside of it. So we can turn this immediately into a component. It's called background with image, so let's just convert it to component, and down below we have this structure here, which has a content with a CTA. As you can see, it's named exactly that way, so we can immediately convert this into a component as well. And on the right side, we can turn all of these cards into a component. So let's just convert it to component. Now we can go to a different page. Let's go to a sign up page, for example, and we can turn this form into a reusable component. So let's convert it to component, and that will be enough for this video. Now we can go into a components layer, and we can pin all the new components that we have created, and as you can see, there they are, all the 4 components that we have created. And now to make these components as reusable as possible, we need to turn them into widgets. Now I won't go into details about the widgets in this video, since we have a totally separate video which covers everything you need to know about the widgets, so you can go there and take a look. And off the camera, I'll turn all of these components into widgets, so see you in a second. Okay, here I am. I turned these components into widgets and connected everything except one thing, and that is the background of this section here. I want to do it right now so you can see how can you do it as well. So first of all, let's open a variables of this component, and let's create a new one. Let's call it let's call it simply color. Let's not involve the background word here. And we need a simple input value here. Hit confirm. Into a default value, we can input a hex code like this. Hit the save button. And now we need to connect this. For this, we need to go to the settings. But firstly, we need to select our div, then go to the advanced, and here into the attributes, we need to add a new attribute. So let's add one. It needs to be named a style, and inside value, we need to input like this, background. This is a CSS property for the background color. And inside, we want it to be dynamic, so we want this value to be pulled from the actual widget. So we need to type like this, a $sign, then curly braces. And inside these curly braces, we need to type in like this, widget. Since we are pulling value from the widget, then we need dash, right arrow, get, then open normal braces. And inside, we need to type in a name of the field which we created inside our widget. We named it color, so we're just typing color here, and we can hit the add button. And now we can go back inside to test if this actually works. Let me copy some different hex code for the color and hit the save button. And as you can see, the background color has been changed, and that means that everything works perfectly. Okay, so now when everything is prepared, we can proceed even further. So let's go into a components layer and create a completely new component. Let's call it section flex, for example. Hit confirm, and inside we can back out a simple structure like this, a section, a container, and a div, which is actually going to be the wrapper. And now we can pull this section outside of this default div and completely remove it. Now we can here input some default values. Let's go with 100 for the top and bottom padding. And here we need to input two divs. Let's call them left and right. And let's set this wrapper to be flexible, since this is a section flex component. This is fine. We can just make a gap of 100 pixels, and this is fine for the starting structure. Now don't get confused about this, since everything will make sense in a second. Now this component needs also to be turned into a widget. Now we need to create a new variable. Let's call it content left simply. Then inside the input, we need to choose a component option. Let's select it, hit confirm. And here into a default value, you will notice this drop down. If I open it, I will have a list of all my components on my project. Now we can select something here like content with a CTA. That is a layout which we turned into a component. Now this will be a default value. Now let's add another variable and call it content right. Again, we need to set a component option here, hit confirm. And for this option, we can set a background for image, for example, background with image, sorry. Now we can hit a save button. Now we need to connect everything. Now, when you want to nest a components, you need to use the embed tag. So let's find it here. Let's add it inside this div and inside this div as well. Now let's select it, go to the settings, and here open the variables pop-up, open the widget drop down, and we need to connect a content left option, hit save, and let's do the same for the second embed, but this time content right, hit the save button, and now you will see that my embeds are pulling the value from this widget, which is actually another component. And that's why at the beginning I said nesting components inside a components. Now, since everything is a little bit squished here, let's set up this div here to have a width of 100%, so it can take up as much space as possible. And we will do the same for this div here, and you will see that the space is evenly distributed between these divs. And now we can even center this content here, and now you can see that we have created a completely new component by using two existing components. Now it's time to see everything that we've created in action. So let's switch to the pages here and let's open, for example, a blending tool. It doesn't really matter. And here, below this section, we can add a component tag, and we can call the component that we've just created. It's called section flex. Here it is. And as you can see, here are our default sections, which our default components, which we set up inside our widget. Now we can go into edit component, and as you can see here into a content left, I can drop down it and I can select whatever component I want to be showcased inside my section. Let's leave the content with CTA, and you will also notice this configure data. And if you remember before, I said that I need to turn all of my components into a widgets, and now you will see why. If I go into configure data, I can configure this content with CTA component on this page. For example, let's set up for the title my test title, and for the button title, let's just name it Click Me. Let's spell this correctly, Click Me. And we can hit the save button, and we can hit the save button again, and you will see that I have changed my component, which is inside this big component. I've changed the content of it, and I can change the content on this component on multiple different places, and all those contents will be separated. They won't interfere with each other. Now let's go back inside, and to prove you even further, let's again keep the same component to the right, and here into configure data we can choose a different image. Let's choose this phone here, and for the color, let me really quickly copy a different hex color. Now we can hit the save again, and you will see that the default color has been changed into my new color, and the image has been changed as well. Now let's not switch pages anymore. Let's immediately add another component tag, and again we need to call our section flex, and inside we can exchange the content. For example, on the content right, we can set up a simple form for the example, hit the save button, and you will see that the form, which on the beginning we created into a component, is now showcased inside my big component. Now we can as well go here into edit content, and inside here we can type in something like my new test, so you can see that we will have a separate content. And as you can see, we are using a same component on two different places, and we have a completely separate content between them. Now let's add another component so we can test it one more time. Again, we need a section flex, and this time not here but inside the edit content, on the left side we can set a background with image. Let's configure it, switch the image to these two phones, hit the use button. We can keep the default color, it doesn't matter, hit a save button, and on the right side we need that grid with cards. Let's hit configure data, and these are some default values which I added. As you can see, there are 4, so let's hit save button, save again, and now you can see that I have my component which has image on the left side and that grid with 4 cards on the right side. Now we can as well go inside, and for this grid with cards we can configure data, and for example, let's go for the first card, let's edit it. Let's, for the icon, set up this Divhunt logo, and for the title let's name it my new card. We can hit the save button. We can even remove this card, for example, since we don't want it here. Hit the save button, and you will see that I have here a different logo, different title, which I just set up, and we have -1 card since we removed the 1. And we slowly came to the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and until the next time, happy building!